Please, just one more chance.
We were never friends, Damian. You only loved me when I carried your future.
You think you've won?
No, I simply stopped living for your success.
The concrete didn't feel like an ending. It just felt cold. I remember the taste of copper, the wail of sirens in the distance, and Damian's laugh echoing from the rooftop above. I had dulled my own mind for years, just to keep them warm. And the second I stopped being useful, they shoved me off the edge. I closed my eyes, expecting the void. Instead, I woke up to the smell of cheap floor wax, the frantic scratching of a number 2 pencil. My lungs expanded. With a violent, jagged gasp, I gripped the edge of the desk until my knuckles popped. The fluorescent lights hummed a low, synthetic buzz. I wasn't dead on the pavement behind the science building. I was sitting in a molded plastic chair. My chest heaved, pulling in air that smelled of dry erase markers and someone's overpowering vanilla perfume. Chloe's perfume. I looked down. A test paper lay flat on the desk. AP Calculus BC, midterm examination. My hands were shaking. I pressed them flat against the cold laminate to force them still. The date read October 14th, junior year. I closed my eyes. The memory of the fall still rushed through my inner ear like a physical weight. They had ruined me. Damian used my research to win the National Science Stipend. And when the review board flagged the data as overlapping, he and Chloe pointed the finger at me. She stole it, they said. She's unstable. The school believed the kids whose parents funded the new athletic wing. My scholarships were revoked. My admissions rescinded. When I confronted them on the roof of the science building, Damian pushed me. Just a warning shove. He'd probably tell the police later. But I lost my footing. Now I was here. 2 years earlier. I stared at the paper. Problem 14. Evaluate the integral. In my past life, I knew the answer, and I deliberately wrote down a flawed decomposition instead. I had tanked this midterm. I scored a 62, so Damian's 88 would look like genius on the curve, keeping him in the top percentile for the Global Scholar Qualifier. I spent my entire high school career rounding down my own intellect just to survive. If I was smart but submissive, they kept me around. If I was a threat, they destroyed me. I picked up the pencil. The yellow wood felt heavy against my thumb. I looked up. Mr. Harrison was reading a paperback, oblivious. Damian was chewing his eraser, staring at the back of Chloe's head. Chloe was carefully filling in a bubble, her manicured nails catching the light. A cold, quiet clarity settled over me. The panic receded. Something hard and sharp took its place. I flipped my test paper over. I found the pink eraser in my pencil case, and I rubbed out the fake, fumbling answers I had written minutes ago in a past life. I rubbed until the paper was almost raw. I swept the gray shavings onto the floor. Then I started to write. I didn't hold back. Taylor series, polar curves, differential equations. I didn't just solve them. I used the most elegant, unassailable methods I knew. My pencil flew across the page. The lead snapped. Once, twice. I didn't care. I grabbed a pen and kept going. 5 minutes, Mr. Harrison called out. Not looking up. A groan rippled through the room. Damian leaned back, smirking, and tapped his chin, our silent signal. Did you make sure I'm covered? I stared at him, really looked at him. The expensive haircut, the arrogant slouch. He wasn't a god. He was just a boy who needed to steal the oxygen from everyone around him. I didn't nod. I flipped to the front page and wrote my name in dark, heavy letters. Harper. When the bell rang, a weight lifted off my shoulders. I dropped the test on Mr. Harrison's desk. He barely glanced at it. I stepped into the hallway. Lockers slamming, sneakers squeaking. A chaotic symphony. I leaned against a locker and took a breath. Hey, Space Cadet. Chloe materialized beside me, Damian a half step behind. She smelled like cloying vanilla. "You look like you were sweating bullets in there," she said, faux concern dripping from her voice. "You didn't mess up the curve, did you?" "Damian needs this." "Harper," Damian chimed in, leaning against the locker next to mine, boxing me in. "My dad will kill me if I drop below a 90 on the adjusted scale. You kept it under 70, right? In my past life, I would have ducked my head and assured them I played my part. I would have felt a sick twist of shame, trading my dignity for their scraps of friendship. I looked at Damian, then at Chloe. "I guess we'll see," I said. My voice didn't shake. It was flat, dead. Chloe's eyebrows pulled together. She wasn't used to me speaking without an apology attached. "What does that mean?" "It means Mr. Harrison will grade them," I said, stepping away, breaking their circle. "Excuse me, I have biology." I didn't look back, but I could feel their eyes burning into my spine. The fear wasn't gone, but the rage was stronger. I wasn't going to hide anymore. Let them burn in the light. The fallout took exactly 48 hours. Friday morning, AP Calculus. The air was thick with post-exam dread. Mr. Harrison stood at the front, holding a stack of graded papers. He looked different today. Frowning, he kept looking at the top paper, then up at the rows of desks. "Before I pass these back," he said, cutting through the chatter, "I want to talk about the curve." Damian sat up straighter, nudging Chloe's chair with his shoe, a smug ritual. "Historically, I curve this midterm based on the highest score in the room," Mr. Harrison continued. He took off his glasses and wiped them on his tie. "That score usually sits in the high 80s, sometimes low 90s. His eyes found mine. Today, however, there is no curve. A murmur of outrage swept the room. Chloe raised her hand without waiting. "Mr. Harrison, that's not fair. What was the highest grade?" "The test wasn't too hard, Chloe," he said dryly. "It was exactly as difficult as an AP exam. And there is no curve, because curving a perfect score would benefit no one but the person who earned it." The room went dead silent. Damian whipped around to look at me, panic flaring in his eyes. He thought I'd scored an 85 and ruined his margin. He had no idea. Mr. Harrison walked the aisles, dropping papers face down. An 82 for Chloe, a 76 for Damian. Then he stopped at my desk. He looked at me for a long moment. No warmth, just clinical curiosity. He placed the paper face up. 100. A+, in sharp red ink. Below it, a hastily scribbled note. "See me after class." I didn't flip the paper over. I left it there, stark and red, for the people behind me to see. When the bell rang, the explosion was immediate. 100? Chloe hissed, slamming her hands on my desk. Her face was flushed, the sweet veneer completely shattered. "You got a perfect score." "Looks like it," I said, packing my pencils away one by one. "You told me you were going to throw it," Damian snarled, crowding in beside her. "My dad is going to see a 76, Harper. Do you know what he's going to do?" "I don't remember telling you I'd throw it," I replied, zipping my case shut. I stood, forcing them to step back, and, frankly, Damian, your grade reflects your own work. If you wanted an A, you should have studied. Chloe laughed, incredulous. "Who do you think you're talking to?" "You're a charity case, Harper. The only reason people look at you is because we let you sit at our table. Then I guess I'll find a new table." I slung my backpack over my shoulder and walked to the front. Mr. Harrison was waiting. The room had emptied, leaving just the two of us. "Harper," he said, tapping a pen against the desk. "In 2 years, you've hovered at a B- average, minimal effort. Rarely participate. I've had a change of perspective, Mr. Harrison." A sudden intellectual awakening. He raised an eyebrow. "You solved problem 14 with a technique typically covered in college-level differential equations." I read ahead. I said smoothly, He leaned forward, elbows on the desk. The Global Scholar Qualifier exams are in 3 weeks. The school picks the top 3 juniors. The results dictate early admissions to Ivy League programs. The administration already has their 3 names picked. Damian, Chloe, and Liam, I said. It wasn't a guess. I lived it. Yes. He leaned back. But a perfect score disrupts their algorithm. If you keep this up, you'll displace someone. People here don't like being displaced. I'm not worried about other people anymore, Mr. Harrison. You should be. They'll think you cheated. They'll try to prove it. Don't slip up. I walked into the empty hallway. I felt a strange, terrifying freedom. I was a target now, but this time, I wasn't standing on the edge of a roof, waiting to be pushed. I was building the ledge myself. Lunch was the true test. The cafeteria at Crestview was a rigid caste system. As I approached the round table by the windows, the conversation stopped. 6 pairs of eyes locked onto me. Chloe said nothing. She just moved her bag onto the empty chair beside her, a physical barricade. I didn't stop. I didn't hesitate. I walked past their table and sat down near the vending machines. I took a bite of my sandwich. It tasted like cardboard, but I smiled. They thought they were freezing me out. They didn't realize I was the one locking the door. By Tuesday, I was a ghost. Or worse, a disease. Nobody asked for my notes. Nobody bumped my shoulder in the halls. In a school like Crestview, dropping a social tier was supposed to be a death sentence. But I found the silence exhilarating. I had so much free time. No more drafting Damian's history outlines, embedding just enough small errors to stay unsuspicious. No more writing Chloe's essays. I used the time to study for the Global Scholar Qualifier. I hit the library every afternoon, tearing through physics, geopolitics, and theoretical mathematics. My brain, suppressed for so long, absorbed it like dry earth drinking rain, but Chloe wasn't the type to let a slight go unpunished. If she couldn't control me, she would destroy me. It started with whispers. I heard she had the answer key. I heard she paid someone to take it. Standard high school vitriol. I ignored it. I aced a pop quiz in chemistry. I decimated a debate in AP government. The whispers turned into a low, continuous roar. Then came Thursday. The PA system crackled. Harper to the principal's office. Immediately, I closed my textbook and made the long walk down the corridor. When I walked in, I wasn't surprised by who was waiting. Principal Davis, behind his desk, looking grave. Mrs. Gable, the guidance counselor, behind him. And Chloe, in a visitor's chair. The picture of distressed innocence. Have a seat, Harper, Davis said. I prefer to stand. We have a serious issue regarding academic integrity, Davis said. Chloe claims you confessed to obtaining an illicit copy of the AP Calculus midterm, Mrs. Gable said gently. I let out a harsh laugh. I confessed to her? When? She said it happened in the locker room yesterday. Cheating is a zero-tolerance offense at Crestview, Davis said, his tone hardening. Given your sudden improvement, this accusation is highly credible. Credible? I tasted the word. My grades improve, so I must be a fraud. Has anyone asked Mr. Harrison? He graded the paper. He said your work was highly irregular. Methods you weren't taught. Because I read a book. I snapped. I looked at Chloe. Look at me, Chloe. She flinched, but looked up, eyes wide and watery, almost Oscar-worthy. You're lying, I said, my voice dropping calm. You know you're lying. You're terrified my rank will edge you out of the top 3. That is enough. Davis stood. You will not attack another student in my office. Chloe came to us out of moral obligation. Her moral obligation is to her own ego, I said. You want proof I didn't cheat? Fine. Test me. The room went quiet. Test me. Right here. Right now. I demanded. Give me any calculus problem. Give me 20. I'll solve them in front of you. If I miss even one, you can expel me. Davis blinked. This wasn't the script. This is highly irregular, he stammered. So is accusing a student without a shred of evidence, based on the word of a girl whose rank I threaten? I shot back. Call Mr. Harrison. Tell him to bring the hardest variant he didn't use. 10 minutes later, Mr. Harrison walked in. He looked like a man watching a fascinating experiment yield results. This is the C variant. I use it for makeup exams. It's harder than the one you took. He handed me a pencil. I knelt on the floor by the coffee table, a position of submission that contrasted with the fury in my chest. I flipped the paper over. 5 complex problems. Multivariable calculus. The room was so silent I could hear the air conditioner hum. I let the math take over. No room for Chloe's lies here. No room for Damian's entitlement. In mathematics, you are either right or wrong. I was right. I documented every step, every derivation, every theorem applied. It took me 14 minutes. I stood up and stepped back. Mr. Harrison picked up the paper. He flipped the page, checking my work. A slow smile spread across his usually dour face. Flawless, he told Davis. On problem 4, she found a shortcut that bypassed a standard 2-page derivation. Chloe made a small, strangled noise. Are we done here? I asked. It appears there's been a misunderstanding, Davis said, uncomfortable. It wasn't a misunderstanding, I said coldly. It was an assassination attempt. If you want zero tolerance for dishonesty, look into who really wrote Damian's history paper. Check the metadata on the Word document. I threw that grenade casually, knowing the explosion it would cause. I walked to the door and looked back. Chloe was pale. The realization finally dawning. I wasn't her stepping stone anymore. I was the wall she was about to crash into. I'll see you at the qualifier rankings, Chloe. The grenade took exactly 3 hours to detonate. I was in AP European history when a student aide handed our teacher a yellow slip. Damian, Mr. Russo said flatly. Principal's office. Now, Damian froze. He looked at Chloe. She looked away, staring at her textbook. She already knew. She'd been in the room when I set the trap. Damian grabbed his bag and walked out. The metadata on a Word document is a beautiful, unforgiving thing. It tracks the original author, the creation date, every machine the file passed through. In my past life, I wrote Damian's paper on my own laptop, under my own user ID. He was too lazy to even copy the text into a new file. He just changed the name at the top and printed it. By the end of the day, the rumor mill had gone from whisper to scream. I walked into the courtyard when Damian marched toward me, flanked by 2 lacrosse players. His face was mottled purple. You snitched, he hissed. You told Davis about the paper. I merely suggested they check the digital footprint, I said quietly. I didn't back up. If it was your work, Damian, there wouldn't be a problem. They gave me a 0. Academic probation. I'm out of the top 10. I'm out of the qualifier. Then you better start studying for the SATs, I said, looking him dead in the eye. Because you'll actually have to take those yourself. He lunged. A thick arm shot out and shoved him back. Take a walk, Damian. Standing between us was Nathan. He sat in the back of my physics class. Quiet. No sports. Universally ignored. He also had the highest natural GPA in the school, right behind Chloe and Damian's inflated grades. Stay out of this, freak, Damian said. You're embarrassing yourself, and you're on probation, Nathan said, adjusting his backpack strap. Throw a punch on school grounds. Davis will expel you before the blood dries. Walk away. Damian pointed a shaking finger at me. You are dead. You're a nobody. He shoved through the crowd, his lackeys trailing. The courtyard was dead silent. Everyone was staring. I pulled my jacket tighter. Thanks, I said to Nathan. I didn't do it for you. I just hate the noise. He paused, looking toward the pillar. You sandbagged for 2 years. Why? I was tired, I said honestly. And now? Now I'm awake. Nathan gave a slow nod. Good. The preliminary list drops tomorrow. Let's see what you bring to the table. The list was pinned to the cork board at 7:30 a.m. Friday. The crowd thinned when the bell rang. I walked up to the board. The top 3 names were bolded. 1, Harper. 2, Nathan. 3, Liam. Chloe was number 4. Damian wasn't even on the page. I stared at my name. The ink was black and absolute. For 2 years in my past life, I watched Chloe and Damian gloat over this list. While I sat in the mid-40s, suffocating my own potential, the vindication didn't feel like an explosion. It felt like a deep, slow breath of cold air. Enjoy it while it lasts. Chloe was standing at the end of the hall. Her makeup was flawless. Her jaw was jumping. I planned to, I said. You think you won? You think you actually belong up there? Math isn't a trick, Chloe. It's an absolute. You either know it or you don't. You are nothing, she hissed, dropping the good girl act entirely. You don't have the money. The tutors, the connections. The qualifier is designed to break people like you. You're going to choke. And everyone will know you were a fraud all along. Are you done? I asked, checking my watch. I actually need to go to chemistry. I walked past her. She didn't try to stop me. She was out of ammunition. The next 3 weeks were a master class in psychological warfare. My locker was jammed shut in gym class. I had to cut the lock with bolt cutters. In the cafeteria, someone knocked hot soup onto my backpack, ruining 2 notebooks. I spent 4 hours that night rewriting my physics notes from memory. They wanted me frayed, paranoid, sleep-deprived before the exam. There were days the isolation felt heavy, like a weight pressing on my ribs. I would sit in the dark, remembering the cold wind on the rooftop, remembering how easy it would be to just stay quiet. But then I would open my textbooks. I buried myself in the mechanics of the universe. Nathan kept his distance, but he was always there, a silent sentinel on the edge of my vision. If Chloe's friends lingered near my locker, he would appear, scrolling on his phone until they left. We never spoke about it. It was an unspoken alliance, forged in the fire of exile. 3 days before the exam, I stayed late in the chemistry lab. The door opened. Mr. Harrison walked in. The administration is nervous, he said quietly. They send students prepped by consultants since they were 12. You're a wild card. They're terrified you'll embarrass the school on a global stage. I don't represent Crestview, I said, wiping down my station. I represent myself. Harrison smiled. A rare, genuine expression. I told Davis you'd say something like that. I've been teaching for 20 years. I've never seen a mind correct its trajectory this violently. Do not let them pull you back down. I won't. Good. He tapped the table twice and walked out. Saturday morning, 7 a.m. The State Capitol Testing Center felt like a bunker. I stood on the concrete steps, clutching 3 pencils, a pen, and my student ID. No phones, no calculators, no smartwatches. Around me, hundreds of the elite milled about, wearing tailored blazers and generational confidence. Chloe stood with girls from a rival school. She'd bought her way in through an appeals process. Damian was nowhere, a ghost of the past. She saw me, whispered something, and they all sneered. I looked right through them. I found Nathan near the doors. Nervous? He asked. No, I said. It was the truth. Proctors are ready, a man announced. Find your rooms. No talking from this point forward. The exam was designed to be a nightmare. 8 hours. 4 sections. Logic, quantitative reasoning, geopolitical strategy, theoretical sciences. My room was a cavernous hall, desks spaced 6 feet apart. The proctor broke the seal on the booklets. The sound echoed like a gunshot. You may begin. The rest of the world ceased to exist. The quantitative section required applying calculus to supply chain disruptions. I saw the patterns immediately. The geopolitical section presented resource scarcity in the South China Sea. I tore through it, digging into the grim realities of trade law. Hours bled together. The air grew heavy with the collective stress of 100 panicked teenagers. I heard someone hyperventilating. I heard pencils snap. I didn't stop. I was a machine built for this exact purpose. I poured every ounce of rage, every silent tear from my past life, onto those pages, pencils down. I stopped writing. My hand cramped so badly, my fingers locked in a claw, my head pounded. But my chest felt light, so incredibly light. I walked out into freezing rain. Nathan was already there, pulling his hood up. We walked to the train station in silence. The results took a full month to process. For a month, Crestview held its breath. Chloe paraded around, discussing how well she handled the logic section. I ignored her. I went back to my books. Then came December 1st. Homeroom. I was staring at the frost on the window. The PA clicked on. It was Principal Davis. His voice sounded strained. "We have just received the official results from Geneva," he said. A long, agonizing pause. "It is my honor to announce Crestview High has produced a student on this list." A murmur rose. People looked at Chloe. She sat up straight, a triumphant smile breaking across her face. "Not only did the student place," Davis continued, his voice trembling, "they secured the highest aggregate score in the history of the exam." Chloe practically vibrated out of her seat. "Ranking number 1 globally," Davis said. "Congratulations to Harper." The silence that followed wasn't the absence of noise. It was a physical vacuum. Chloe froze, half standing, her smile decaying into pure horror. Her reality, built on my subjugation, had just been vaporized. The homeroom teacher dropped his coffee mug. It shattered on the floor. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I picked up my pen and kept writing. Dark roast coffee bled across the linoleum. No one moved to clean it up. No one breathed. "Harper," the teacher stammered, abandoning his mug. "The principal's office. They'll want you down there." I closed my notebook. The snap of the cover sounded like a gavel. As I walked down the aisle, students physically recoiled, flattening themselves against their desks. I was no longer the charity case. I was radioactive. When I reached Chloe's row, I stopped. She stared up at me, mascara flaking at the corners. I didn't say a word. I let the silence crush her, then turned my back and walked out. The main office was a circus. 2 local news reporters were already in the lobby. Principal Davis stood sweating through his suit, talking to the district superintendent. When he saw me, his face stretched into an artificial smile. "Harper, my God, you've made history. The superintendent is here." "The press." "No," I said. The word dropped like an anvil. The bustling office ground to a halt. "No press. No photos. No interviews with my name attached to this school." I looked at the superintendent. "Hello, Dr. Harris. I assume Davis told you about his attempt to expel me a month ago, on 0 evidence." Dr. Harris's smile vanished. He turned a lethal glare toward Davis. "He did not," Davis sputtered. "It was a misunderstanding. A procedural error. You cleared it up because I forced Mr. Harrison to give me a college-level exam on your office floor. I corrected. You were willing to ruin my life to protect a legacy student who bought his grades. You don't get to parade me for cameras now. Harper, be reasonable," Davis hissed. This is a monumental achievement for the district. Here are my terms, I said. Release a brief statement confirming a Crestview student achieved the score. Do not use my name. If you try a photo op, I will personally email the Global Scholar Ethics Board in Geneva. I'll detail exactly how Damian's history paper was plagiarized and how this administration covered it up. Davis looked like he'd been struck. Agree to her terms. Davis, the superintendent said coldly, do not push this. I walked out into the empty hallway. A slow clap echoed down the corridor. Nathan stepped out from the shadow of the trophy case. Extortion, he observed. I expected you to gloat. I didn't expect you to neuter the principal in front of his boss. I work with the variables I'm given, I said. Number 1, he shook his head. I placed 14th globally. I thought I was untouchable. 14th is Ivy League early admission, I pointed out. Number 1 is picking the Ivy League and telling them to pay your rent. He offered me a pretzel from a crushed vending machine bag. It was the most normal human gesture I'd experienced all morning. I took a pretzel. It was stale. It tasted like absolute victory. The offers arrived by phone calls, encrypted emails, black cars pulling up to the curb. By the second week of December, I stopped attending most of my classes. I spent my days taking Zoom calls with admissions deans from MIT, Oxford, and Caltech. They didn't want me to finish high school. They wanted me on campus by spring. I was a statistical anomaly. They treated me like a sovereign nation. I was packing my laptop after an interview with a physics department head at Stanford. The library door creaked open. It's not Mrs. Gable. I froze. I knew that voice. Damian stood in the doorway. He looked terrible. His haircut was grown out. His hoodie was rumpled. You shouldn't be in here, Damian, I said. He stepped forward, hands shoved in his pockets, eyes locking onto a Harvard folder on the table. My dad cut off my credit cards. He said, voice tight. He found out about the paper. He found out I'm not going to the qualifier. He told me I was an embarrassment. Harper, he said, stepping closer, his voice pleading. Before all this, we were a team. I know I pushed you too hard, but you won, okay. You proved your point. I need you to tutor me. I need my grades back up before regular admissions. If you co-sign for me, they'll listen to you. You're a god to them right now. I looked at his hand on the table, then at his face. He really believed it. We were never friends, Damian, I said, my voice dangerously soft. We were a parasite and a host. You didn't push me too hard. You suffocated me. You used my brain as a resource. The second I stopped being convenient, you tried to destroy me. I didn't want to. He protested, voice cracking. Chloe made me. Do not blame her for your own cowardice. You loved having me beneath you. You loved the power. You want to know the difference between us, Damian? If you take away my money, my school, my social standing, I still have my mind. I can rebuild anywhere. If you take away your father's checkbook, you are absolutely nothing. Tears welled in his eyes. Real, pathetic tears. Please, Harper. I have nowhere else to go. Then I guess you'll have to get used to the void. I walked past him. He didn't try to stop me. Nathan was leaning against his locker. He took one look at my face and shoved his books in his bag. Stanford, he asked. MIT, I corrected. Advanced quantum mechanics research. Starting in January. He stopped walking. January? You're not finishing junior year. I'm not finishing high school, I said, a smile breaking across my face. I'm achieving escape velocity. Nathan nodded slowly. I got a letter from Caltech yesterday. Full ride, early entry. Looks like we both make it out, I said. He held out a hand. Not a high five. A formal, adult handshake. I took it. His grip was firm. See you in the atmosphere, Harper. My last day at Crestview was a Tuesday. Anticlimactic by design. No assemblies, no tearful goodbyes. I spun the combination dial on my locker for the last time. Leaving already? I closed my eyes for a fraction of a second. Inevitable. Chloe stood 10 feet away. She looked a decade older than 2 months ago. Sweatpants. A messy knot of hair. The untouchable facade, replaced by hollowed-out exhaustion, just clearing out my things. I said neutrally, MIT. She spat the word like a curse. That's the rumor. You're dropping out to go to MIT. It's not a rumor, I said, tossing my chemistry textbook into my bag. Chloe stepped forward, fists balled at her sides. You ruined my life. The accusation bounced off the linoleum and the metal lockers. Did I? I leaned against my open locker, crossing my arms. You know you did, she screamed, her voice cracking. I was number one. I was going to Princeton. My father had the connections. Everything was set, and then you stepped out of the background and destroyed it. They flagged 3 of my AP classes for grading inconsistencies, she sobbed. My GPA dropped. My dad won't look at me. She pointed a shaking finger at my chest. You stole my future because you were jealous, because you couldn't handle that we were better than you. I listened to her entire tirade. I didn't interrupt. She wanted me to yell back. She wanted proof she mattered enough to make me angry. I felt nothing. The rage that fueled me through the midterm. The qualifier, it was gone. You can't be angry at a ghost. I didn't steal your future, Chloe, I said quietly. The calm hit her harder than a shout. I just stopped writing it for you. She flinched. You were never number one. You were an illusion propped up by my silence. The second I stopped doing your homework, the illusion collapsed. You're a sociopath, she whispered. No, I'm just the reality you couldn't afford to buy. I slammed my locker shut. The crash made her jump. Have a good life, Chloe. Try reading a book sometime. It helps. I turned and walked down the hall. I didn't run. I didn't look back. I could hear her sobbing behind me, fading as I pushed through the doors. The cold December wind hit my face. I took a deep breath. It tasted like absolute, untethered freedom. I reached the edge of campus and stopped. I turned and looked up at the science building. 4 stories of red brick and glass. My eyes traced the fire escape up to the flat gravel edge of the roof, the exact spot where, in another lifetime, my story ended in terror and a sickening plunge. I stared at the edge for a long time. I waited for the phantom taste of copper, for the echo of Damian's laugh, for the crushing weight of the void. Nothing came. It was just a building, full of small people, playing small games, and I was no longer a piece on their board. I adjusted the strap of my bag, turned my back on Crestview, and walked toward the train station. I had a quantum mechanics syllabus to read, and a whole universe waiting to be decoded.